Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in to our intermittent writer-focused podcast. Here with us today is writer Ryan Danks. How you doing, Ryan?
Good. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. I should probably play our official intro music, so hang on just a second. Just to assure everyone that this is a high-quality podcast. Bespoke and handcrafted with love. So we were going to talk about plotters and pantsers today, which is a subject we have tried over before, but it's just Ryan and I today. Everyone else seems to have called in sick to the podcast. So, Ryan, you said you had some thoughts about this subject?
So I've been floundering, like I think you have as well, jumping from, well, I should pants, but then I don't like it. So I'm going to go back and plot this because I just can't find it. So I was reading Robert Mckee's story this week. And one of the things that jumped out at me was the writer's rhythm that he mentions, where he talks about how a writer's rhythm would be write in the morning and let your characters take you on an adventure and then go back and look at that scene and break it down and see, is it necessary? Does it have the positive and negative charge and all of that kind of thing? And so I think that could lead either way. Like you can set up what he calls events or scenes in advance and then write them and then make sure it works that way. Or you could just pants and then go back and spend more time that way. So it didn't really clarify anything for me, but it gave me techniques to use in either one.
I kind of like the idea of writing in the morning and then analyzing it at night. So who is Robert Mckee? I've heard the name before, but who is he?
He wrote this book that's been kind of everybody's story Bible since like 2003, I think he wrote it.
Okay.
And I was looking for, because I had a moment of incredible self-doubt this week, even though I'm 30,000 words into my new story, I was still like doubt. So I looked up, how does Brian Michael Bendis write? Because I love his comics. And he said, I found an interview with him where he said, I don't actually have any rules or any principles that I follow except a few, and all of them are found in this book.
Really?
So I picked up this book.
It's on Audible. I might have to pick that up and listen to it in the gym. That's kind of cool.
It's geared towards screenwriting. 100%. But he does talk about novelists a little bit and other kinds of writing, but he approaches it more from an art perspective. He even talks about music a little bit, but he's more about this is how you tell a story. And whether you're a novelist or a screenwriter, he actually suggests that novelists have an easier time than screenwriters, which I haven't found to be true, but it might just be my own personal proclivity towards screenwriting. But he says that novelists can hide behind their pretty prose, where when a camera gets on something, everything is laid bare and you can't hide anymore. But I'm not going to put a camera on my work, so it could still work.
That's an interesting idea. So he writes in the morning, takes a break at lunch, then goes back and does his editing and his analysis in the afternoon?
Well, that's what he said the writer's rhythm would be. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the same day, I guess. But the rhythm is that you write by letting your characters tell the story. You get into their head, you have them tell the story, and then you go back to it. Could be same day, could be later. And you look at, he has a couple of things that's required. Like he has beats, which are like reaction beats. So I say something, then you say something to respond to what I said, and we go back and forth till the end of the scene. And those reaction beats need to lead to a change of the charge of the scene. If the scene started positive for one specific type of value, it needs to end negative for that value, whatever value you're looking at. Life and death, freedom and slavery, relationship, being together or being apart, whatever it is. And then he branches that into sequences. Like you have sequences of scenes that have its own charge, and then the sequences make up acts, and acts makes up stories, right? But the rhythm was write and then go back and make sure that every scene is fulfilling that job. Because if it doesn't fill that job, it's exposition, and you're better off finding another place in your story to use that. And it's interesting for that because it helps my mind. That's kind of a little bit in the middle of analytical and creative. I want to know that what I'm doing is going to work at the end. So it's been putting me on that road. I'm enjoying it.
Oh, that's pretty interesting stuff. Cool. Did this guy have a cameo in adaptation?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
He's been the way. I don't know anything about him, to be honest. Brian Michael Bendis said it's the way, and if you could do worse than writing like Brian Michael Bendis, so that was my.
Okay, yeah. Adaptation was a kind of a movie about writing. Nicolas Cage plays the screenwriter of adaptation. He's been hired to adapt a book about this biologist who looked into orchids, and he just can't do it. He's just having trouble. And there's a scene in adaptation where he literally goes and talks to Robert McKee, one of his seminars, try to get some insight on how to do it. There's a funny bit at the end where he goes after the seminar to ask him a question. He's like, "Well, which guy were you in the?" And the seminar's like, "Well, I'm the guy you yelled at. You have to be more specific than that." So I thought he looked familiar. All right, Walt says he's coming in a few, so we got to hang on for Walt somehow. So what are you working on right now, Ryan?
So I'm working on Shadow's Edge, which is the parkour, darkcore thing. How's it? It's turned into, and I'm really excited for it. It's turned into kind of a legacy martial arts story.
Really?
With powers, like everything's with powers with me. But like it's opening with this guy's mother 20 years ago in Japan, getting excommunicated from her family and not 100% understanding why, which is revealed later. But then she moves to America with the love of her life and has a child. That child becomes the hero of the story, but it matters because like she's from this clan that's still almost Snake Eyes, but I don't want to say that because it turned out to be kind of crap. But kind of like a modern clan that mirrors old stuff, and she's like this master martial artist and tries to pass it on to him. And it's really like it's still a lot about parkour and darkcore, and that's a huge element of it. But a martial arts and ancestral, like your bloodline matters and all of that has really taken a hold. And I'm excited for that. I'm digging it.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's a video game called Darkcore. I don't know if you're aware of that.
A what?
There's a video game out there called Darkcore.
Is there really?
Yeah, it's on. It's a 2D platformer. I'll shoot you the link.
I found it on. I was looking up parkour sayings. I don't remember why, and I saw that, and I was like, "Wow, that's really cool!" And it kind of became like this Jedi Sith thing in my head, which my story is not becoming, kind of, but not really.
Yeah, it's a very cool concept, but yeah, it's this very simple 2D platformer on Steam. So, and probably no one's heard of it except for me who Googled it right now. But yeah, it's kind of cool.
That's interesting. So they did. Oh, they're playing off of Shadows. Okay.
Yeah.
Because darkcore is supposed to be like you do parkour in the dark because you're doing dark shit that's illegal. And so they call it darkcore, and it's the dark side of parkour.
Doing crimes.
Yeah. Like there's people in, I want to say it was Toronto, but I might be wrong on that. But there was an actual like parkour community where people were mugging people or vandalizing buildings. And even when someone says, I'm calling the cops, they'd be like, good, do it. And they would do these things to get people to chase them for the adrenaline rush of being chased and potentially going to jail. As I understand it, it's been squashed in that community. Like they've handled it, but it was a real problem for a while.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's a cool story.
But they call them, if you practice darkcore, then you're called a shadow, an SHADEUX, because France.
Everything's cooler when it's in French. Okay.
Yeah. But it's cool. I don't know. I felt like this feels like a modern day Jedi Sith Star Wars thing.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Wow, I almost want to write an RPG about this right now. Just this is a great setup.
Right? Like I'm loving the concept.
Yeah, that is really cool. This is the Urban Dictionary link for Darkcore, which they got Shadow right there with the EUX. So
yeah,
That is pretty cool. I've been kind of stuck. I'm trying to get a bunch of RPG stuff out before the end of the year. In fact, I just did about an hour editing today, and working on the sequel to Pew Pew, trying to get that out the door. Just got a bunch of playtest notes in. Like a guy I know on Facebook, Christine, runs a big RPG writing event every November, calls it Rollvember, and he just sent me like 30 or 40 IMs on Facebook about, hey, I have some ideas for your game. I'm like, well, I'm writing number 3 right now, so that's super handy, but it might slow things down. I got a story I'm kicking around the back of my head. I worry about if you have a story in your head for too long, you don't put it on paper, because I feel like you fall out of love with the idea if you don't, get it down fast enough, and then just kind of becomes old hat, and then it's even harder to write. But
I've had that problem.
Yeah.
With this story, actually, I originally made the basis of it in 2014.
Okay.
And yeah, same thing.
Kicking around for a few years then.
It sucks because it's never as good on paper as it is in your head. And that gets worse over time because then it gets perfect in your head, and you never meet it on paper.
Yeah, it's kind of like relationships in a way, I suppose. Your initial impression is, you're kind of starstruck, and the idea of it is so powerful, and then you get into it. It's just work in the middle of it, like everything is. So,
and then you read it, and you're like, "What the hell was this? What was I thinking? This isn't what I had in mind."
Yeah, which makes you want to do things like outline more to try and save that initial feeling. But so
100%.
Well, I think we've talked some interesting stuff. Robert McKee's story, I'm going to check out. There's an audiobook, so I'll be checking that out. Looks like I heard from JR just now, his kid's having some legal problems, so he's not going to make it. And Walt says he's in a meeting with his day job, so he's not going to be here. So I think we should probably just call this a very short special episode of Writers Chat, and maybe follow up next week. So
I'm good.
All right, cool. Thanks everybody for checking us out, and we will see you next time on Writers Chat on the BAM Podcast.